Hey guys, welcome back to the final episode of the Nothing to Do With You podcast for the current series. As always, you're joined by me, Clodagh. um, yeah, season 2 is done. I'm so happy and so thrilled. What a way to end 2024. Um, I am joined by an incredible final guest for this season. I wanted him from the very start of planning season 2 and reached out, and I was so humbled and honoured and thrilled to have him join me. So shortly I am going to put on my chat with the incredible Dermot Whelan. And before that, I just wanted to say a massive thanks to every single person who has either listened or watched the show during the year. This is completely a little hobby for me, a little way of me speaking out and expressing my feelings and allowing other people to have a platform and a space where they can chat about things that are going on in their lives, good or bad. And that's the whole point of the Nothing to Do With You community, is that there literally is nothing to do with us. We all have our moments and we all can have our highs and our lows. And it's being able to talk it out has been probably one of the most freeing things that I have ever had. When I had my breakdown in 2022, or as I now call it, my breakthrough, it opened my eyes to so much. I thought that I knew everything about mental health and anxiety from previous journeys, but I hadn't a fucking clue. And it humbled me a lot, actually. But now I'm in such a better headspace, thank God, through all the work I've done myself, the work I've had with professionals and friends and family and support. And it's something I found it recently. I was going through a high anxiety bout, still am, but I have a lot going on. I have a new job. I'm starting to pack up my house. We're moving into a new house, and like my dog had a stroke. I probably haven't long left with her. There's been a lot going on, and we can get overwhelmed sometimes, and that's okay. But I think we have to give ourselves a break sometimes, and just acknowledge that we're not always going to be feeling great, and that's okay. And we're not always going to be feeling shit either, and that's more than okay. So, yeah, look, 2024 has been a superb year. It really has. It has highs and lows, but every single thing has had a learning from it, and it's been incredible. And I'm so grateful and blessed for all the wonderful people I have in my life. And you all know who you are. But I also want to take a minute to thank every single guest that came on this season, and, took time out of their life to come on and chat with me and share their story with me. I mean, everyone, El Paco was incredible, to come on talking about men's mental health and mental health within the traveller community, and just a fantastic ambassador for young men. I had Father David Vard, who was one of the youngest priests in Ireland, and that was lovely to have a conversation about faith. God, who else have I done? I've had Amy Burns, my Endo Warrior Queen, back on giving us an update. I had Nikki Veazey on talking about coping with grief. Siobhan Mungavin, she was amazing, talking about scoliosis and spina bifida. That woman is an inspiration, and her smile is to die for. I had my best friend on. I had a friend on talking about the housewives, which was amazing. We got to chat about what we consider taboo for us. Well, I don't actually, but I'm sure others do. Our love of the housewife franchise, just it was lovely to mix and match things, and have the opportunity to be able to chat with people. Jason Byrne, again, another incredible guy. Um, oh my God, I really wanted to do an episode about addiction for so long, but wanted to be very respectful and careful in how I went about that, and who I would have on, and he was just perfect. He's an incredible, incredible man. I know I'm forgetting somebody, but every single guest that has been on, I literally can't thank you guys enough for allowing me to, I suppose, be a space for you to chat. So thanks a million, guys. We've laughed, we've cried, we've gotten pissed off, we've done it all. And that's what this podcast is about. And I'm really looking forward to season 3. This is probably my last time recording in this studio, but I'm really looking forward to, hopefully in the new house, to having a right little setup, and it'll have a little bit more of my stamp on it as well. But yeah, so the Nothing Taboo with You community is always going to be there, even while the podcast is on break. You can follow me on Instagram, it's on YouTube, it's on TikTok, it's on Facebook. I'm always here for a chat. If you've never met me, it doesn't matter. If you've never talked to me, I just want people to know that if you're ever feeling any kind of a way, there's always someone to reach out to. My DMs are certainly always open. And yeah, this is going to continue to be a space for people to chat about life, chat about the goings on, the ups, the downs, and everything in between. And I just want you to all know you're all incredible people. And once you have a good heart, lads, that's half the battle. Everything else just falls into place, and that I can promise you. So I just wanted to say thank you so much again to you all for allowing me share my hobby with you guys. And I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And I'm so happy to end on such a fantastic note with the incredible Mr Dermot Whelan. I can't wait to go to his show in Clonmel on the 2nd of January. I think it's his actual first live show of his current tour, so I'm really looking forward to that. I definitely drew a lot of strength from his book Mindfull back in the day. I would highly recommend it to anyone, whoever just gets a little bit kind of busy in your own head. It's definitely one worth reading. But yeah, so thank you so much for everything, guys. I hope 2025 is going to be absolutely smashing for us all. And I can't wait to see you guys in the spring for season 3. 3, Genie Mac, I can't even do that right. 3. I'm not even bothering editing to take that out, you know that? So yeah, thanks so much, guys, for the laughs, the love, and everything in between. And here's to a smashing new year for us all. So as always, as I always say, be wonderfully weird, be you, be sound, be kind, and just look after yourselves. All right, guys, take care. So without further ado, I am so excited to have this guy on the podcast. What can you call him? A comic genius, a TV star, a radio presenter, a bloody best-selling author. The list goes on. Meditation expert, media expert. I mean, what do you go by now, Dermot? What's your title?
I'm not sure I've ever been called a comic genius before, Clodagh.
Really? Okay, lads, you have to check out Republic of Telly clips on YouTube and then you'll get it, okay?
Yeah. Do you know, it's a really interesting question because it's something that I struggle with at the moment. The worst thing, I hate when people go, so what do you do? And I'm like, how do I explain this? Well, I used to work in radio and TV and now I mix comedy and meditation and I put on shows. And so
yeah,
I don't know. I haven't quite come up with a snappy way of saying it, but I guess I follow my passions. That's about it.
I love that. That's a great way of explaining it. So Dermot, I've brought you on because I have so many people that get in touch with me about anxiety, depression, ways of helping it about. And I said, who better to have on than Dermot? And how it sold it for me was the time I read your book and you said you showed up to a gig in an ambulance after having a panic attack. And
yeah.
I've had those situations myself, not as dramatic as that, shall we say. But what I love about you is you do put a comic spin. And even saying comic, I don't even want to say that. It's not a comedy spin. It's a real spin on mental health. And I suppose I'd like you to just kind of use this time to give us a talk about your journey briefly to where you are now, why mindfulness, why meditation, and how the benefits of it have really helped you.
Oh, well, thanks so much, Claude. And I'm very honored to be on your podcast. I love what you're doing. I love what you're trying to do. And
Thank you.
because I would have loved a podcast like this, you know, when I was struggling, but there wasn't such a thing. So anyway, it's a pleasure to be part of it. And I can't wait to see what other exciting things you do. Yeah, sure. I mean, you mentioned the term mental health there. And I think even those two words put people off as well. It can sound a bit intimidating or scary or cliched almost at this point. So for me, you know, this whole area, it's all about the language you use and how accessible you can make it. And certainly, I think in recent years, there's certainly more people and more places to go, and podcasts like yourself that make it accessible. And that's what I try and do. I try and use humor, let's call it, and my own story to talk about this stuff in a way that maybe people haven't heard it spoken about before. Sometimes I think the whole wellness world in general can be a bit worthy and a bit almost smug at times, you know, and it's like an exclusive club that you have to sort of work hard to be part of and project your life in a certain way and be flinging yourselves into ice baths, you know, at 5 a.m. And, you know, and look, that stuff works, but I think it's a commodity now as well at the same time, you know, and we have to be aware of that. It's
almost a trend, isn't it now? Like the ice baths and
it
all
is.
that. It is. Yeah, it's nearly cool to do.
It's not to remove, I mean, there is good stuff in there, you know, but sometimes we can feel even more intimidated that, you know, if you did all the things that all the experts were telling you to do, particularly on social media, you'd have no time left in the day to actually go and do your job or look after your family. Story. You know, you'd be in ice baths, you'd be writing in your journal, you'd be practicing your gratitude, you'd be hiking up the mountain, you'd be meditating for an hour. You know, like how much time are we expected to have? You know, you'd be lashing the collagen into all kinds of things. So I think just pick one small thing and try that for a week. I think that's kind of my approach to it.
That's a good
idea. Look, my story in a nutshell is that I was never aware of anything like anxiety or, you know, having any real. I think people know the word anxiety now, but certainly 20 years ago, it wasn't really spoken about that much. No. I had never heard of a panic attack or anything like that. When I look back now at my life, I realized that I did have quite a bit of social anxiety. Even though I wanted to sort of perform, I did have a lot of anxiety around just people and crowds. And I think a lot of performers, particularly comedians, seem to share that trait. It's like,
really,
you know, we live in terror of being pushed out in front of people, but we push ourselves out in front of people. And I think it's really interesting. But so I would have always blushed really easily. I was known in school for going really, really red. I would sweat a lot. And I think particularly blokes might experience that. Blokes with a bit of shyness might be used to kind of going out to the bathroom in the pub to try and dry their armpits because they're sweating through your t-shirt. That's something that I always had to do. I know it sounds gross, but it was all part of this sort of high stress state that I would be in. And that was just my normal. I just presumed that, and I didn't really overthink it. I just thought these are things that I deal with, that other people don't seem to have to, but you know, I guess I used pints and cigarettes as stress management because that's, I guess, what was demonstrated to me by the grown-ups when I was growing up. It seemed perfectly normal. I used to think of myself as a 3-can man, that if I could, particularly when I was in college, you know, if I could get 3 cans into me, I felt like my breathing got a bit slower and I started to relax and have a little bit more confidence. And again, I just thought most people were like that. And then in around the mid-noughties, then I did have a panic attack, which I talk about in the book Mindfull, on the way to a comedy festival. And that sort of really woke me up and made me go, all right, what just happened? What is a panic attack? What is anxiety? Do I have it? Have I always had it? And then as I said, I would look back over my life and I go, do you know what? I definitely did. Because I remember starting in radio, and I was a newsreader, and about 6 months into the job, I would try to read the news and I felt like there was a hand over my throat and I was just squashing my voice. So I sounded like Gollum, or Obi-Wan Kenobi. These are not the droids you're looking for. Sorry, that was a terrible impression. Don't tell my kids.
That was amazing.
Use the Force. But yeah, my voice kind of was
Use
like
that on your meditation apps. Brilliant.
And so I guess when I look back, I was like, that's one of the symptoms of anxiety is a tightness or closing of the throat. So when I look back, I think, yeah, wow, I definitely did have that. So that kind of woke me up to it. I remember talking to other comedians the night after I had that panic attack at the festival, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we have them all the time." I was like, "What?
No way.
Why is no one talking about this stuff?" Then I, quite by accident, met a woman who was teaching meditation. I was very cynical about that stuff, thought it was for real hippie types.
Same.
But I gave it a lash because I thought I needed something that wasn't pints, because that wasn't getting me very far. And then, it just started to work. So I practiced it for over 10 years, well, maybe about 8 years. And then I decided I was going to do some teacher training. So I trained with a chap called David G, who has appeared on my podcast a couple of times.
Right.
He's an American.
He's brilliant.
He's just great. He's but the reason I gravitated towards him is because he's funny. He talks about quite deep spiritual things and real life stuff, but he just has a great sense of humor. And I was thinking, why don't I hear many more people in this space, talking about the mind and our crazy behavior, just who can make it fun, and
I love that.
So that was really inspiring to me. So that's what I try and do now. So I've been teaching meditation in companies and in my own work on tours and stuff like that for the last 5 or 6 years. I wrote my book Mindfull in 21 because I felt like I didn't. It was the book that I would have loved to have gotten when I was freaking out,
Do you know, that's exactly what I thought when I read your book first. It's like, I would have loved this 11 years ago. Yeah. Exactly what an anxious mind would want, with like no bullshit, no long-winded jargons. You're straight to the point throughout. And that's what I love about the book,
Yeah, the jargon annoys me, Clodagh, and I'm sure it does too. And again, it's really unnecessary, and it's what puts people off. Again, particularly blokes. I guess I am one, so I tend to lean into that perspective a little bit. I think women are better, not perfect, but better than men at gravitating towards, looking for help or looking for things that can weave into their life. Like,
and why do you think that is,
I was
Dermot?
thinking, what?
Why do you think that is? Is it something with you guys? Because this is an interesting one. Because the lads that have messaged me are lads that I'd have never have presumed would even know what anxiety they wouldn't come across. And I should know better than that at this stage in my life, because I never looked like someone who had anxiety. I had the mask of being the social butterfly, you had the mask with the comedy. But is it that with guys, what I want to know, is it getting it from the brain to the mouth? Is that where the struggle is, that they're not speaking? Or is it still that macho, oh, nah, dude, I'll be all right. Do you know, it'll go in its own?
I don't think there's any one specific reason, Clodagh. I think it's a mixture of everything. I think social conditioning is definitely part of it. Men are brought up to be tougher and not open up as readily. Particularly, if you look at our fathers, probably in that type as well, the stiff upper lip, get on with it type approach, which is effective sometimes, but sometimes we do need a bit of help. I can think women in general are just, I guess, are wired more empathically maybe, and are more familiar just about talking about their feelings. But I think, for a lot of the time, men, we're not able. I think it's harder for us, and this isn't backed up by any science in particular that I'm just kind of thinking about it now, but I do think that we find it harder to make sense of what we're feeling. We might realize I don't feel well or I don't feel happy, or I know I'm quite angry, but we would have difficulty sort of verbalizing what we're experiencing, I think, for a lot of people. And certainly I would have been like that. And I still get like that. Sometimes I'm just like, I don't know what is wrong with me, you know? Um, but that's okay. We don't always have to be able to verbalize it very well. But I think that could be one of them, but we also are resistant to share, and we do hope things will go away. Like I'll be talking about it in my show and my book. But when I think when a woman goes to the doctor says, they go, I haven't been feeling well, and the doctor will say, well, how long have you been feeling like this? Ages. How long? 2 or 3 weeks. The guy goes in and goes, I don't feel well. How long have you been feeling like this? Ages. How long? Since I was 11. That we take, we'll sort of live with something for a lot longer, I think. Whereas I think it's a little bit more normal, maybe, for women to seek out medical help, or help with either a physical or a mental symptom a little bit quicker than us,
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. But so the meditation aspect, when you said you hadn't bought into it, what was it that drew you in? What was it that made you go, this is sticking, I like this. This brings out something in me that I'm going to carry on and become a teacher of.
Yeah, great question. My teacher, David G, talks about the 3 things that you need for something to click. So that is the message, the messenger, and the timing. So for a lot of us, we know we might want a change, or we might need something, some tool to help us, but we haven't had it presented to us in a particularly helpful way, or a way that we can relate to. Or maybe we like the person who's talking about the thing. We understand what they're saying, but you know what? The timing just isn't great, because maybe you're looking after elderly parents, or you just have too much on you're changing jobs or moving house. It just now isn't the right time, So message, messenger, and timing. And I think for me, once I tuned into the likes of David G, or the lady Siobhan McKenna who taught me, it was actually Deepak Chopra's program that I started with. I got a little book called the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, a little thin book that he wrote many years ago, and I understood it. I got it. It wasn't too big, fat of a book. The writing wasn't tiny. I felt I could get through it, and it wouldn't be too intimidating. And that just clicked. So the message part was delivered through that little book. I liked the way that he delivered it. He didn't overcomplicate it, so the messenger part was right. And the timing, I remember around that time, I had fallen down the stairs of a karaoke club. I talk about this in the book as well. Pissed and stabbed myself in the head with a champagne glass and knocked myself unconscious. I'm very, very lucky that I didn't break my neck. But after that incident, I was like, Jesus Christ, would you please open your mind and consider something other than
better than this,
partying, to get you through those days when you feel something that you want to get rid of. I wasn't aware it was anxiety. It was just like, whatever the feeling was, the feeling of I want a pint would bubble up with it. And I knew that if I could have 2 sips of a beer, I would feel that kind of calm coming in. The problem is, though, this science shows that, it's the first 10 minutes of having a drink is the one that actually calms you down. And everything after that, you're chasing that 10 minutes.
Really?
That first
is that
10
true?
minutes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So you'll never get that. You're just chasing it, Now, look, I'm not anti-booze. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to your podcast who have a very healthy relationship with alcohol. And, I still drink from time to time, very little, mind.
Same.
But, the odd time I might have a drink. But I know within about 15 minutes, I'm missing the clarity that I had before the drink, and I certainly really, really hate hangovers. I don't know how I put up with so many wasted days. You know, when I think back, I think, oh my God, the amount, hundreds of days feeling like crap.
Yeah.
And you think, was it worth it? Anyway, I don't tend to regret or look back too often. But
Yeah.
anyway, so message, messenger, and timing, that was really important for me. So
Mm.
I always, and of course, when I started the techniques, I felt a benefit. You know, I felt calmer. And I really enjoyed the feeling of just focusing on something within myself. I started with mantra meditation. So that's where you repeat a syllable, a word, or a phrase over and over again silently in your mind. So I think one of the first ones I would have done would have been I am, or so hum is the equivalent in the Sanskrit language, which a lot of these methods come from. So I would have just repeated so hum. And I remember sitting in my spare bedroom trying it, you know, feeling kind of embarrassed and weird and thinking, oh God, if anybody hears I'm doing this stuff, you know, because I associated it with real, as I said, kind of hippy dippy types and,
Yeah.
you know, that sort of loftiness that sort of meditation has been sold with, you know. And I'm thinking, what am I doing? But I remember I really found it quite easy to lock into that I am. And I started to feel a real sense of depth that I hadn't really tapped into before, you know. I don't think in that way anyway. Um, might have got glimpses if I was pissed or something. But
Yeah.
anyway, I just started doing it and I realized I felt a bit calmer, felt a bit happier at work, was sleeping a little bit better,
Really.
was feeling like having a pint a little bit less, had a bit more patience around my kids who were small at the time, particularly around bedtime. That was something my wife pointed out.
Go away.
Because that's what happens when you start these techniques. It's like going to the gym or starting an exercise program. You may not notice a difference and you may think there's nothing happening here. But then you meet someone you haven't seen in a while and they're like,
They see
wow,
it in
you're
you.
doing something new. What's going on with you? You seem great.
Yeah.
And that's what can happen when you start doing these kinds of things, you know?
I love that. And if that's what it brings out, like, why wouldn't you at least try it? And I love what you said there about like the misconception of meditation, because I had the exact same. I was kind of like, you know, that hippy dippy, being able to, and I tried it a couple of times and my mind would wander and I was like, oh well, then sure, I can't do it because my mind wanders, and I switched off from it. But your ones, and particularly the one you have for anxiety and a worried mind, that's almost like my point sometimes now. I'll be honest. If I find that I'm having a time where I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed, like at the moment we're selling our house, I'm starting a new job, there's loads going on, we're buying a new house. And one of the days there, I think it was last week, I actually had to say, whoa, stop, because I could feel that gurgling. And like you, like we've all done in our, anyone who, it's so funny, Dermot, we've such different lives and we have that in common, that anxiety was like, oh, a pint makes it better, a drink makes it better, and chasing it. And like that, I haven't had a hangover, thank God, in over 5 years. Don't intend on having one ever again. I
Incredible.
very rarely drink because I value myself more than that now, you know. But that meditation in particular that you have, it's like my little fix. I can't explain it. When I just go into the room and I just put it on and my mind wanders. And I know that that's okay. Now, I'm nowhere near an expert or getting anywhere to it, but I just find sitting with myself, it actually allows me to let in a little bit of exposure therapy into myself. And it lets a little bit of willful tolerance come in. And that's kind of what I've been adapting more and more the last couple of years in particular. And I don't see that as hippy dippy. I see that as self care and self love and making myself feel good so I can continue on with my day. And that shit's priceless to me. Why wouldn't you want to try that?
Yeah, of course. It is. And you know, you're really hitting some important points there. You know, to use another analogy, it's like, for me, it's like lifting up the bonnet of your car and
Okay.
looking at the engine.
You're such a boy.
And sometimes I like things simple, you know. But I'm certainly no expert when it comes to my car. I can
Yeah.
open the bonnet and go, I don't know what anything does here. But that's what the way we can feel about our mind sometimes. And sometimes we can be afraid or intimidated by our mind, like it's some
Yeah.
kind of out of control mad cat from the internet, climbing up the curtains.
Yeah.
So for me, the idea is that you open up the bonnet and you look around and you go, okay, so when this happens, you know, this affects that. So maybe, to use your examples, I'm moving house at the moment. I'm changing jobs. So I know if there's extra added stress or my job gets quite intense, then I notice maybe I feel when I do allow myself to get a bit quiet, maybe I feel a bit of a disturbance in my belly, like a tightness. Maybe I used to get like little jumping palpitations in bed at nighttime if I was
Mm.
stressed. Um, Maybe I feel really irritable with people I'm working with, or maybe I hold it together and work, but when I come through the front door, I suddenly feel like the red mist coming if I see a school bag at the bottom of the stairs, or
Yeah.
the dishwasher, open and dirty dishes. So really the first step is just opening the bonnet and having a look. Just have a look and try not to judge it and go, okay, so I noticed that if I have these stresses, this is how I behave. Or I feel like I want to drink more. Or I keep waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning for some reason,
Mm.
because when this happens. And
Mm.
just do a kind of just use it as a way of just mapping your own landscape, and
Yeah.
looking at your own particular engine. And because all our stresses are different, what stresses you out, I might take in my stride and vice
Mm.
versa, So really, you hear the word awareness thrown around a lot in the world of meditation and mindfulness. And it can sound a bit Oprah, Super Soul Sunday, airy fairy, but really all it is that just looking under the bonnet and without trying to fix everything straight away, just looking to see how things work for you. So
Mm.
when I did that, I realized, okay, when I actually get this weird feeling in my stomach, which was anxiety, I just couldn't put a name on it.
Mm.
I feel like I want to have a pint.
Mm.
I started there. All right, so what's that? So what if I don't have a pint straight away? And if, I'll just get quiet for 5 minutes and I'll just sit down and I'll put my hand on my belly and I'll just, as if this feeling in my belly is trying to talk to me, I'll just sit with it
Yeah.
and just see if it wants to say anything, if it wants to get more intense or if it wants to go away. 9 times out of 10, you realize that when you do listen to the thing that's going on, whether it's a recurring thought or a physical sensation in your body, it's kind of like a kid, if remember your mother will be on the phone and you see a woman on the phone sometimes and the kid is on their trouser leg going, Mom, Mom, Mommy, Mom, Mom, Mom. You're like, would you go away? I'm talking to
Yeah.
Nuala. Mommy. Sometimes our systems are trying to do that. They're
Yeah.
they're
Pull
they're
at the
trying to
leg.
get our attention and they just want to be heard,
Mm.
even if it's for like less than a minute. So you're like, okay, I feel this uneasiness in my body now here, or as you called it a minute ago. What was it? Gurgling, was it? How did you refer to it?
The witch.
I you a second ago you said, oh, I feel when I feel this. You had some term for it, like um, gurgling,
Yeah,
or
I
I
can
know.
feel it building up, you see. So I kind of feel that overwhelm, that kind of sensation of I actually call it my whoosh.
Yeah, I love it.
My
Yeah, but
whoosh.
that's you.
Yeah.
But that whoosh came
Yeah.
from you at some point in your life
Yeah.
allowing enough space for you to go, oh, what is this feeling? You
Yeah.
weren't reacting to it anymore and trying to push it away. You actually went, this is interesting. I'm going to
Mm.
call it my whoosh. And
Yeah.
now suddenly it wasn't as scary anymore. And it became something that you responded to
Yeah.
as opposed to just reacted,
Yeah.
and that's where the whole journey begins. And you can go as deep as you want. You can go to psychologists and you can go to psychotherapists and you can meditate every day, or you could simply just sit with that whoosh. Or I know I was talking to Glenn Power from the Script, the drummer on the Script, in the band, the script on my own podcast, and he calls it spinning. So,
Okay.
when he feels himself spinning,
Yeah.
he used to reach for the pints. He doesn't anymore. And now he just literally sits down. He has a little notepad and he writes down everything that he's feeling for about 2 minutes and
Yeah.
puts the little notepad away.
Yeah.
So I think it all starts with that sense of awareness and finding your whoosh.
Find it and
There's
turn
a name for your
it.
book.
Yeah, I don't think it's as good as Mindful, but yeah, you never know. And that's the thing, I think, as well, with meditation and mindfulness and all that, it's teaching yourself to turn into yourself. And because what I found I did for years was run. If I felt the anxiety, I gotta get up, I gotta run, I gotta go do something, distract myself, and everything was like 90 miles an hour. My speech, my physical symptoms, my heart, everything felt really urgent. Whereas, and again, I don't have it, we'll say, nailed down anywhere as good as you, but I have found that sitting with it and just kind of sitting back, the box breathing, by the way, you were the first person to teach me that. It's in my, I have a toolkit. So I have my anxiety toolkit, and in that is various different things. The box breathing is one of those things, but I just sit back and I just find myself just taking it in. And those first couple of breaths are like a release of, I don't know whether I was angry or I was upset or what, but it feels that's out of my head now. That's out. Okay. So now I'm just going to sit and just bring myself back to where I am here and now. And then I get up and go on about my day. And it's so simple. It's so cheap. You just wish, like you said, that there wasn't such kind of, misconceptions about it. And I know it's me and you were talking about here, making it sound simple, but I know I was that person that said, no, that's not for me. No, that won't work. Turning into it, sitting with it, no. But it does work. It flipping works. So
it does. And I think a lot of it as well is, what was a real breakthrough for me was actually just telling myself it was okay. If I had a day where I was feeling up to high dough, as my mother would say, flying here, there and everywhere, and I'm feeling a bit anxious and a bit sort of fizzy the way I feel it. I feel like there's fizz in my body and my mind.
Yeah.
I go, it's okay. It's okay. I'm feeling that. I probably have a lot on today, and I know it's not going to last forever. And it's not that I'm getting the day wrong that I feel like this, but okay, let's just take a couple of deep breaths and then we're just going to do our best.
Yes, I love that.
We're not, yeah. And I remember, some of your viewers and listeners may not be into angels. Not everybody is, but I remember, somebody saying to me when I was having a particularly hard day, and some those days when I was very stressed out, and I was saying, I just don't know how I'm going to get through today. It just feels so daunting, so it just seems like so many mountains. And I was thinking, she just said, why don't you ask your angels to just pick you up and carry you through the day? And I was like,
I love that. Yeah.
And at the time I was like, I don't particularly believe in angels, but I kind of like the idea that there's this force bigger than me, and I could call it my higher self or angels or God or whatever you want to call it, that is there all the time supporting us, and we can just call on it from time to time. And that it's not all about us controlling everything, that actually maybe there's something, just if we let it, will gently carry us through the day. And even just that being allowed to just unclench my fists a little bit really helped,
And I love that. And like you said, whatever it is for you, that higher belief, if it's God, if it's whatever. I found myself a practicing Catholic again in the last couple of years. Just it happened, and that, to me, very personal, very private. I don't feel I have to shout it from the rooftops, but again, that helps me as well. Like you said, you're giving up the control of it, I think we can be a little bit, I don't know if you agree with this, but with an anxious mind, you almost instantly become a control freak. I have to control situations so I'm not going to get anxious again. And it's not possible, you know.
No.
So it's okay to let go of that control. I love that. Like I'm totally on the same wavelength with you there. I love that.
Yeah, and it can lead us to being perfectionists as well. You know, you're trying to, a part of that micromanagement is micromanaging yourself and every project you're working on. And then you
Exactly.
might, you know, if you get fed up trying to do it to yourself, because that's exhausting, you start to try and micromanage everyone around you, you know, and
Exactly.
try
Yeah.
fixing them. So yeah, that's definitely being, realizing that imperfection was actually perfection. That was a
I'm
big
down for
breakthrough for
that.
me, but
Yeah.
still something I still have to work on, you know.
And that leads me on to talk to you about your upcoming tour. Busy and Wrecked. What a name. I mean, it's exactly as it says on the tin. And another reason why I love your content and what you're about so much. Tell me about the tour. What can people expect? I'm going to Clonmel, so I'm really looking forward to that. But what can they expect from the tour?
That's a great question. And I love when people ask it because this kind of show doesn't really exist. So I feel like I'm perfectly justified in telling people what they're going to expect, because sometimes people are like, what is it? Comedy, meditation? So Busy and Wrecked, the name comes from the amount of people that I've met teaching over the last few years. They're the two words that keep coming back to me. I'm just so busy. I'm just mad busy. I'm crazy busy. I'm up the walls, you know, and I'm wrecked. Are you wrecked? We all go around asking each other, telling each other we're wrecked all the time. So I was like, this is our national
God, we're
pastime now.
miserable bastards.
But that's the
Yeah.
question used to be, how are you? I'm fine, thanks. Now it's, how are you? Oh, Matt, don't talk to me. Crazy busy, up the walls, flat out.
Yeah.
You know, and I was very curious about how we ended up in that place. So the show is my own story with overwhelm and burnout through comedy. It's like a funny TED talk as well. I've got some slides and things just to explain why the world is so busy and why a lot of the busyness and overwhelm you're feeling isn't actually your fault. It's the way the
Yeah.
world is wired at the moment. We reward busyness and we wear busyness like a badge of honor. It's a sign of social status, and science shows us that the less, the more we can demonstrate how little time we have for the important things, the more important people will think we are. And it's actually real. You know, there's lots of scientific studies done on it. So we'll explore why the world is so busy. What are the behaviors that we can maybe have a look at that add to our busyness, like people pleasing and avoiding things, avoiding the work we know we need to be doing, or avoiding the big questions like, who am I and what do I want? And we'll have a laugh. Noni, my character from the radio, will be making an appearance or two. And then at the end, I'm going to take the whole audience on a very special journey into space, because it's all about finding space, little moments. Doesn't have to be an hour meditating on a mountaintop. This could be you just having one conscious breath while you're queuing for a chicken fillet roll. This is where the busyness starts to dissipate, when we find those little moments of space. So I'm going to take people on a lovely guided meditation, perfect for any cynics or any beginners, and then we'll all float out of the place. But I'm going all around the country, so I'm here, there, and everywhere from January 2nd, and I can't wait to meet everybody.
How long is the tour for? It's from January to when?
It's from January to mid-March, so
You're going to be
straight
busy,
out of the
man.
gate on the 2nd of January in Clonmel, and then I'm all around the country. I'm in the Bord Gáis in Dublin, I'm in Cork Opera House, UL in Limerick, and everywhere else in between.
Clonmel just seemed like the handiest for me, you know. It's closest to Thurles, so you have to keep it, you know, within the county, you know.
Absolutely.
I'm really looking forward to it, Dermot. I'll be a little bit smug going in now, kind of feeling I have a bit of the, you know, the inside scoop of what this is about, lads. But Dermot, I really appreciate you coming on today, because I know your time is precious. You have a lot going on. You're busy and wrecked. And I just really, really, really knew from the start of the season, as I said, that if I had a top guest, and as I said to you on the voice note that day, I'm not blowing smoke up your arse. This is who I wanted, because you are very like me, putting the comic spin, having a bit of fun with your head and your life and the ups and downs, and letting it be okay to have a shit day sometimes, or feel shit. That unfortunately we're not as unique as we like to think we are. There's plenty of us out there who are busy and wrecked, and I applaud you for what you're doing. And I've admired you as a comedian, I have admired you as a broadcaster, and now I admire you even more as a mental health expert and advocate. So thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. And you know what? Those words mean a lot. I got an email after a particularly long day, and I guess I'm on a new career now after leaving the radio. And some days are hard.
Yeah.
Working for yourself is hard. You know, it has new challenges, but I do love those new challenges. But I was at the end of a hard day, and I opened my email, and someone had emailed through my website, and they said, God, I remember you on Republic of Telly. Why aren't you funny anymore? And I just saw you on Dahi and Mora talking about mindfulness. Will you please go back to being funny? And I was like, oh, it was like a stomach punch. I was like, I don't need this email. Why did you go to the trouble of writing that? So I recommended to that person that they come to my show, because it is funny, but it's also helpful. And I guess, it can seem a million miles.
Wow.
When people go, what are you doing the mindfulness thing for? Why don't you just be funny? Like,
Yeah.
it's always been my goal to help people to feel better, and that's what we always did on the Dermot and Dave show. We wanted people to feel
100%.
happier at the end of the show than they did at the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's still my goal. I still want to make people feel happier. I want to help them make them feel better. I'm just doing it in a different way. And I guess for me, it feels way more complete. I'm blending all the parts of myself, and not just the part of me that wanted to, jump up on a stage when I was a kid. It's the deeper parts as well. And I think that's where, just to circle back, the message, the messenger, and the timing tend to happen when we can come from that more authentic place, as the Americans like to say.
Yeah.
But thank you.
I'm using that word as well. I must change it up now. Yeah.
Well,
but,
all it means is that we're being ourselves, and I guess if there's anybody listening, who does experience the kinds of things we were talking about from time to time, I just want to tell you all that I really relate to it. And, some of the most anxious people I've met are also the funniest. Sometimes it's the people who really, really love the crack are the ones that suffer a little bit more. And if you are a person who really, really loves the crack, it can be traumatic to suddenly feel like, oh my God, I'm not the crack. The crack has been sucked out of me, which sounds pretty disgusting. But, but it can feel almost doubly traumatic when we're the kind of person who generally loves fun, but for whatever reason, we're not feeling like ourselves. And I've been there, and you worry if you're ever going to have a bloody sense of humor again.
Absolutely,
But of course the answer is, of course, the crack is still in there, and if you come to my live show, I'll find your crack.
He will. Yeah, you heard it here, folks, and you've seen it. He will find your crack, and I have no doubt there's no better man. And the fact that you have your personality, that actually makes you a perfect candidate for being a mental well-being and advocate and meditation advocate, because you're like, you're one of the lads, you're Noni, you're Chocolate, and you're talking about meditation too. You can do it all. You've a wide range of talents there. And to be like, again, here you and I are skitting and laughing, and we've both had those panic attacks where we're like, shit, we're dead, that's it, we're done, good luck. And you can sometimes I think putting a laugh and a smile to things, it's not diminishing it in any way, but it just can make it that little bit easier and that little bit more normal, and you feel you've the common ground then, so that's why I can't thank you again enough for all you're doing. Keep up the good work. Can't wait to see you in Clonmel. I am going to come up and get a picture with you, because I'd be like, come on, let's, I deserve a picture now.
Please do.
Picture.
And anybody else, So yeah, grab the stress head in your life, and start the new year on a
Bring it with
positive
them.
note.
Where can
Yeah.
people find the tickets?
DermotWhelan.com is the best place to go. You get
Yeah.
links to all the venues around the country on
Perfect.
that one, and
I'll
those
share it
guided
on the page here
meditations
too.
you spoke about are on the website as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I highly recommend those guys. I've often went to them. There's specific ones for specific situations. Check them out on his website. They're fantastic. So Dermot, thank you so much, and thank you so much to all my listeners for this latest season. I hope you're going to have a smash in 2025. I'm really looking forward to coming back in the late spring again, and please God, you never know, Dermot might want to come back on again, see how we're getting on and how he did post his tour. So as I always say, lads, there's nothing to boo about you. You are who you are. You're perfectly imperfect, and always just be good to yourselves and be sound. Take care, lads, and thanks for listening.